The colony outpost rested on the edge of human space, far from the busy trade routes and crowded core worlds. It was a small station with only a few dozen workers, most of them scientists, technicians, and supply staff. The outpost had been built to study strange signals that traveled from the unknown regions of the galaxy. Many people believed the work there was unimportant, but for Mira it was the center of her life. Mira was a young scientist with a curious mind. Every day she listened to the faint whispers of radio waves, searching for patterns that might explain the mysteries beyond known space. Her small lab was filled with blinking lights, old computers, and recording devices that played soft hums in the background. She enjoyed the quiet life of the outpost where nothing ever seemed urgent. One morning she stepped into the main hall and saw a new face among the workers. He was tall with calm eyes and a steady presence. His name, she soon learned, was Rylan. Officially, he had been hired as a maintenance worker to help repair the station's aging systems. At first, Mira thought nothing special about him. He was polite, soft-spoken, and always willing to lend a hand. Yet there was something about him she could not quite place. While most workers complained about the slow routine of the outpost, Rylan never complained. He moved with quiet discipline, fixing broken panels, checking machines, and cleaning areas that others ignored. He did not talk much about his past, and when people asked, he gave short answers that revealed very little. Mira noticed he often avoided long conversations as if he was guarding secrets. Life in the outpost continued as usual. The scientists recorded data, the workers handled supplies, and the commander of the station mostly stayed in his office, sending reports to the central colonies. Nothing ever happened that could break the silence of their isolated lives, but Mira's work had begun to take a strange turn. For weeks she had been studying a repeating signal coming from the direction of uncharted space. It was faint but regular, like a heartbeat in the darkness. At first she thought it was a natural radio source, perhaps from a pulsar or a distant star. But as she listened longer, she realized the pattern was too deliberate. It carried pauses, changes, and intervals that felt almost like a message. One evening, while Mira sat at her console, she heard the door behind her slide open. Rylan stepped inside. He often came to help her with small tasks, though he had no reason to spend time in the science wing. "Working late again?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Mira said, turning toward him with a smile. "This signal is unusual. I think it might not be natural." Rylan walked closer and looked at the screen. His eyes narrowed slightly as the graphs moved across the display. For a moment, Mira thought she saw something different in his expression, a kind of focus far sharper than that of a simple worker. "What do you think it is?" he asked. "I don't know yet," Mira replied. "It could be a coded message. Maybe from another colony, or maybe not from humans at all." The words slipped out before she could stop them. She expected Rylan to laugh, but instead he stayed silent. His gaze locked on the data. Then he gave a small nod. "Keep recording it," he said softly. "It might be important." His reaction surprised her. Most workers would have shrugged and ignored her theory. But Rylan seemed to take her concern seriously, almost as if he already understood what the signal meant. Over the next days, Mira kept monitoring the strange waves. The pattern grew stronger, and new layers of rhythm appeared like steps of approaching footsteps. She told the commander of the station, but he dismissed her warning. "Probably just background noise," the commander said with a tired wave of his hand. "Don't let it worry you. We are too far from anything important." Mira felt frustrated. The signal was not noise, she was sure of it. She thought about telling the other scientists, but most of them were too focused on their own small projects. Strangely, the only one who seemed to listen was Rylan. He began to stop by her lab more often, asking quiet questions and studying the displays with careful attention. Mira felt both grateful and suspicious. Why did a maintenance worker care so much about alien signals? And why did he always know the right questions to ask? One night, after most of the crew had gone to their quarters, Mira decided to walk through the corridors to clear her head. As she passed the storage bay, she noticed the faint sound of movement. She paused and looked inside. There, in the shadows, she saw Rylan. He was inspecting one of the storage crates. His hands moved quickly, almost professionally, checking hidden compartments behind the panels. He froze when he noticed her at the door. "Mira," he said calmly, "what are you doing here so late?" I could ask you the same," she replied, a little uneasy. "What are you looking for?" "Just making sure everything is in order," Rylan said, his voice steady. Mira wanted to believe him, but the way he moved, The precision of his actions told her this was no simple maintenance check. She nodded slowly and decided not to press him further, though questions filled her mind. When she returned to her quarters that night, she could not sleep. She kept thinking about Rylan. He was too calm, too prepared, as if he was waiting for something. Could it be connected to the signal? The days passed and the signal grew even clearer. Mira began to see what looked like coordination codes, the kind of patterns used by fleets to mark positions. It was not just a signal, it was a warning. Something was moving in their direction. She ran to the commander again, this time with stronger proof, but once more he waved her off. "You worry too much," he said. "No one cares about our little outpost. Relax, nothing ever happens here." Mira left his office, her heart heavy. She knew he was wrong. Something was coming and the outpost was not prepared. As she walked through the halls, she passed Rylan. He gave her a small nod, and for a moment their eyes met. In his steady gaze, she felt a strange reassurance, as if he silently understood what she feared. That night, while sitting alone in her lab, she made a decision. If no one else would prepare, she would. She began to back up her research, store supplies, and plan small safety measures for the lab. What she did not realize was that Rylan was watching too, preparing in his own way. The outpost was still quiet. The stars outside still shone without trouble, but Mira felt the silence was about to break. She did not know how soon the danger would arrive or what form it would take, but she could feel it in the signal, and she could feel it in the strange calm of the man who was supposed to be just a worker. For now, she only knew one thing. Rylan was not what he seemed. The days passed quietly, yet Mira felt the silence growing heavy. The signal she tracked pulsed stronger each night, no longer faint or distant, but sharp and deliberate. She spent long hours in her lab, her eyes fixed on the waveforms crawling across her screens. The rhythm had changed. It was no longer random. It was steady, as though counting down. Mira tried again to warn the commander of the outpost. She walked into his office carrying stacks of printouts and recordings. His desk was cluttered with reports, and he looked annoyed as she placed the data in front of him. "Look at this," she said firmly. "The signal is getting stronger. It's directional. Something is moving toward us." The commander sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Dr. Mira, I understand you are passionate about your research, but this outpost is far from any conflict. We are not a target. These are probably echoes from natural sources or long-abandoned probes. You must not alarm the crew." Mira clenched her fists in frustration. "Sir, if we do nothing, we could be caught unprepared. We need to increase security, at least scan the perimeter more often." The commander shook his head. "There is no need. Return to your duties." She left his office with her heart sinking. The others refused to see the danger. She felt alone in her fear, yet not completely. When she stepped out into the corridor, she saw Rylan standing near the wall, as though he had been waiting. He did not ask what happened, but his steady eyes told her he already guessed. "They don't believe you," he said quietly. Mira nodded. "No, they think it's just noise." But it isn't. Rylan's expression did not change, yet there was something in his gaze, a quiet strength. "Then you must trust yourself. Prepare in your own way." His words stayed with her. Why did he always speak as if he knew more than he revealed? Mira could not shake the feeling that Rylan was watching the same shadows she was. That evening, Mira went back to her lab to continue monitoring. The signals now showed multiple layers, like several voices speaking at once. She compared them with known communication patterns from human fleets and felt a chill. They resembled military signals, but not human ones. The rhythm was alien. Her hands trembled as she realized what it meant. Scouts. Enemy scouts were marking their approach, calling for reinforcements. The whispers in the darkness were footsteps closing in. Mira looked up from her console, her heart racing. She thought of Rylan. He had encouraged her to prepare. Perhaps he too understood what was coming. She decided to find him. She walked through the dim corridors of the outpost. Most workers had retired to their quarters and the hallways were quiet. She found Rylan in the maintenance bay, working on a generator with his sleeves rolled up. He looked up as she entered. "You found something new," he said before she even spoke. Mira froze. "How do you know?" "You have the look of someone who has seen a storm before the others notice the clouds," he replied simply. She stepped closer. "It's not just noise. They are scouts. The signal patterns, they are enemy markers. They are calling more ships." They're coming here. For a long moment, Ryland said nothing. His hands tightened around the tool he was holding. Finally, he gave a slow nod. You're right, he said. Mira stared at him. You believe me? I do, Ryland answered. And you must not stop preparing. We do not know how much time we have. His certainty unsettled her. How could a maintenance worker speak with such confidence about alien fleets and signals? She wanted to ask, but his calm expression stopped her. Instead, she whispered, What do we do? Quietly prepare, Ryland said. Do not depend on the commander. He will not act until it is too late. You and I must be ready to guide the others when the time comes. Mira nodded, though questions burned inside her. She decided not to press him yet. For now, she was simply grateful someone finally believed her. Over the next few days, Mira and Ryland worked in silence, each in their own way. Mira stored data, backed up her research, and prepared emergency supplies in her lab. She also mapped safe routes through the station in case of evacuation. Ryland spent his time inspecting the outer hull, checking hidden storage areas and repairing defense systems the commander had long neglected. Mira noticed he always seemed to know which areas mattered most. He checked not just the generators but also the airlocks, communication relays, and supply depots. His precision was not that of a simple worker. Late one night, Mira caught sight of him again in the storage bay. This time he was not repairing. He was opening a concealed compartment in the wall. Inside, she glimpsed metal cases neatly stored and locked. They looked nothing like maintenance tools. When he saw her, he closed the panel quickly. You should be resting, he said calmly. So should you, Mira replied. She hesitated, then added, Ryland, you are hiding something. You are not just a worker, are you? His eyes met hers for a moment. They were steady but unreadable. Not everything is what it seems, he said softly. Then he walked past her, leaving the question unanswered. Mira stood alone in the bay, her mind racing. She wanted to know the truth, but deep down she already guessed. Ryland was more than he appeared. The following evening, Mira's fears were confirmed. She was in her lab, scanning the signals, when alarms suddenly blared through the outpost. Red lights flashed along the corridors. The commander's voice shouted over the speakers. All personnel to stations. Unidentified ships detected on approach. Mira's heart pounded. She rushed to her console. The radar feed confirmed it. 3 alien scout ships had entered their sector, moving fast toward the outpost. The quiet days were over. The shadows had arrived. Chaos filled the outpost. Workers ran through the hall shouting and confused. The commander tried to issue orders, but his voice cracked with fear. Most of the crew had never faced a real threat. They were scientists, technicians, civilians. They were not soldiers. Mira tried to stay calm. She knew this was only the beginning. If scouts had arrived, more would follow. She turned and saw Ryland enter the lab. Unlike the others, he was not panicked. His eyes were sharp, his steps steady. They are here, he said simply. Mira nodded, her voice trembling. Yes, scouts, they found us. Then we must act quickly, Ryland replied. His calmness in the storm struck her again. While others ran in fear, he moved with purpose, as though this moment was one he had expected all along. The alarms echoed. The station shuddered as the alien ships fired warning shots across the hull. Mira looked at Ryland, fear and trust mixing inside her. She thought he was only a human worker, an ordinary man sent to repair broken machines. But now, in the flashing red light of the alarms, she began to wonder. Who was Ryland, really? And why did he seem ready for the battle that was about to begin? The alarms continued to blare through the outpost. Red lights pulsed along the corridors like a heartbeat, and the floor trembled with the distant echo of blasts striking the outer hull. Scientists rushed from their labs, their faces pale, while technicians shouted orders that no one followed. The calm and quiet life of the colony station was gone, replaced by chaos. Mira gripped the edge of her console, forcing herself to breathe. On the radar display, the alien scout ships moved closer, circling like predators. Their weapons fired short bursts against the shields, testing, probing. It was only a matter of time before they launched a full attack. She looked up and saw Ryland standing in the doorway. Unlike the others, he was not panicked. His face was calm, his eyes steady. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. Ryland, Mira whispered, her voice shaking. They are attacking. We have no defense. What do we do? He stepped forward, his voice firm. First, you stay calm. Fear will not help you. Trust me, Mira, stay close. There was something in his tone that made her obey. He spoke not as a worker, but as a leader, as someone used to giving orders. The station shook again, harder this time. Panels sparked, and a scientist screamed as the lights flickered. Mira's heart pounded. The commander's voice came over the speakers, but it was no longer steady. All hands, prepare for evacuation. Repeat, prepare for evacuation. Evacuation? Mira's stomach twisted. The outpost was deep in space. There were no safe planets nearby, no rescue fleet waiting. Evacuation was little more than abandoning hope. She turned back to Rylan. We can't run. They'll cut us down before we escape. Rylan nodded once. That is why we do not run. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that Mira could not explain. Before she could ask what he meant, the doors to the lab burst open. A squad of alien raiders had boarded the station. They were tall, armored creatures with sharp weapons glowing in their hands. Their eyes burned like fire as they scanned the room. The workers froze in terror. Mira stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. She had never seen an alien warrior up close. The air around them seemed to vibrate with menace. The nearest one raised its weapon toward the group of scientists, and then Rylan moved. In a blur, he stepped between the raiders and the crew. His hand went to his chest, pressing a hidden panel beneath his worker's uniform. The fabric shifted, folding back, and beneath it a layer of dark armor unfolded like living metal. Plates snapped into place across his chest, shoulders, and arms, glowing faintly with blue light. His calm eyes turned sharp, his voice deeper and commanding. "Get behind me," he ordered. The workers stared in shock as the quiet maintenance man transformed before their eyes. No longer a simple laborer, Rylan now stood as a soldier, strong, armored, and prepared for war. Mira gasped. Her mind raced. All this time he had hidden this. He was not a worker at all. He was something else, someone sent here for this very moment. The aliens growled and opened fire. Beams of energy shot across the lab, but Rylan moved with impossible speed. His armor shimmered, absorbing the blasts. He raised his arm and a weapon unfolded from the plates, humming with power. He fired back, the shot striking an alien squarely in the chest and sending it crashing to the floor. "Move! To the back!" Rylan shouted, guiding the civilians away while he stood his ground. Mira's legs trembled, but she obeyed, pulling a terrified technician with her. She could not take her eyes off him. The quiet man who once swept corridors and fixed generators now fought like a warrior from legend. Every movement was precise, every strike calculated. He did not hesitate, did not falter. More aliens stormed through the door. Rylan charged forward, his armor glowing brighter as he activated hidden systems. Blades unfolded from his arms, slicing through enemy weapons. His voice was steady, his commands sharp. "Seal the lab doors," he ordered. "Protect the scientists." Mira and the others scrambled to obey, slamming panels shut and locking systems. The sound of battle filled the room, blast sparks, the clash of steel on steel. Mira crouched behind a console, her heart racing, watching Rylan stand against the invaders. For the first time, she felt hope. The fight raged on. Rylan fought like 10 men, moving faster than Mira could follow. He struck, blocked, fired, and advanced, never giving the aliens a chance to overwhelm him. But Mira could see the strain in his eyes. The outpost was not built for battle. They were outnumbered and more enemies were arriving. She realized she could not just watch. She had to help. "Mira!" Rylan called out suddenly, his voice sharp. "The power core, reroute energy to the inner shields." She leapt to her console, her fingers flying across the controls. "On it!" she shouted. Sparks burst from the panel, but the shields around the lab strengthened, glowing brighter. The aliens roared in frustration as their blasts struck the barrier. Rylan pressed forward, driving them back with a flurry of strikes. His armor pulsed with power, his weapon blazing. At last, the remaining raiders fell, retreating back through the doors. The room was filled with smoke and the smell of burnt metal. Mira looked around at the shaken crew, then back at Rylan. He stood tall in his armor, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The scientists stared in silence. None of them had known who he truly was until now. Mira stepped forward slowly. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. You're not just a worker." Rylan turned to her. His eyes, still steady, softened slightly. "No," he admitted. "I am not." "Then who are you?" she asked, her heart pounding. He hesitated, then spoke. "I am a soldier, sent here to guard this outpost in secret, to wait for the day the enemy came. That day has now arrived. The words hit her like a storm. All her suspicions, all the strange things she had noticed, suddenly made sense. His discipline, his silence, his careful watch. He had been preparing for this. Mira's voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because," Ryland said quietly, "sometimes the best defense is to remain unseen. If the enemy believed this outpost was unguarded, they would come without caution. And then when they came, I would be ready." The room fell silent. The civilians looked at him not with fear now, but with awe. He had saved them when no one else could. But Mira's relief was short-lived. The radar screen still flashed red. More ships were arriving. The scouts were only the beginning. Ryland stepped forward, his armored boots heavy against the floor. He looked at the screen, then back at the crew. "This battle is not over," he said firmly. "The enemy will return with greater force. But hear me now. Humanity does not bow to invaders. We will fight, we will endure, and we will survive. With your help, we will make this outpost a fortress." His words lit a fire in their hearts. Mira felt her fear transform into resolve. She stood straighter, her voice strong. "Then we'll fight with you." "Tell us what to do." Ryland nodded. For the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. "Good. Then together we will stand." Mira looked at him, her chest tight with emotion. Just hours ago, she thought he was nothing more than a quiet worker, someone ordinary, someone who blended into the background. But now she knew the truth. He was a soldier, a protector, and he was humanity's shield against the darkness. The smoke in the lab slowly cleared, leaving behind the wreckage of battle. Panels were scorched, the walls pitted with marks from alien blasts. The surviving scientists huddled in silence, their wide eyes fixed on Ryland. He still stood in the center of the room, his armor glowing faintly, his weapon folded back into his arm. Mira's heart pounded, not from fear this time, but from awe. She could not believe what she had just witnessed. Ryland, the quiet worker she had thought she knew, had revealed his true self in the middle of chaos. He was a soldier hidden in plain sight. He had stood against alien warriors and protected them all. But the radar screen behind her shattered the moment of safety. Red signals filled the display, blinking rapidly. More ships had entered the sector, and this time they were not just scouts. A larger force was on the way. Ryland turned toward the screen, his expression grim but steady. "They are bringing reinforcements," he said. "The scouts marked this outpost, and now their war machines are coming." A frightened technician spoke up. We can't fight them. We don't have weapons. This is just a science station." Ryland's gaze swept over the group, firm and unyielding. "Every station has tools. Every worker has hands. And every human has courage. That is enough to start." His words cut through the fear like a blade. Mira straightened, her mind racing. If the others would not act, she would. She stepped forward. "Tell us what to do." Ryland nodded once, then pointed to the doors. "First, we make this station defend itself. Mira, you know the labs better than anyone. There must be experimental tech here. Energy devices, shield generators, anything we can use. Gather it. The rest of you strip every supply room. Tools, wires, batteries, even mining lasers. We will turn them into weapons." The crew hesitated, but Mira's voice carried strength. "Do it. He saved us when no one else could." "We follow him now," that broke the silence. The crew scattered, running through the halls with renewed purpose. Fear had not vanished, but it had transformed into something new: determination. Ryland and Mira moved together through the outpost. Every step echoed with urgency. The quiet halls that once carried only soft chatter now rang with hurried footsteps, shouts, and the sound of crates being opened. In the engineering bay, Ryland knelt by a heavy crate and pulled out a plasma cutter. "This," he said, "can cut through metal. With a few changes, it can burn through alien armor." He handed it to a nervous technician. "You will use this to defend your people." The technician swallowed hard, then nodded. Ryland's calm voice gave him strength. In the science wing, Mira showed him a prototype energy coil she had been testing. "It was meant to power long-distance transmitters," she explained. "But if I rerouted, it could overload and release a burst strong enough to knock out electronics." Ryland's eyes lit with approval. "Good. That will stop their machines. Work on it. I will guard you." Hours passed like minutes as the crew worked under his command. Wires stretched across the floors, generators hummed, and improvised weapons took shape from tools and scraps. The outpost became a fortress, not of polished steel, but of human ingenuity. At last, the warning siren sounded again. Mira rushed to the control room where Rylan stood tall in his armor, watching the radar. The alien ships had arrived, 5 warcraft, larger and deadlier than the scouts. Their dark hulls glided through space like predators surrounding the outpost. The commander stumbled in, pale and shaken. We must surrender. We cannot fight this. Rylan faced him, his voice hard. Surrender means death. You know what they do to colonies. Do you want to hand your people over without a fight? The commander opened his mouth, but no words came. He sank into a chair, defeated. Rylan turned to the others. Then hear me, he said, his voice echoing through the room. We are humans. We have survived storms, wars, and endless trials. These invaders think us weak, but today we will show them what it means to face humanity. We fight not with perfect weapons, but with courage and unity. Stand with me, and we will endure. The crew cheered, their fear burning into resolve. Mira felt her chest tighten with pride. She had never seen anyone ignite such strength in others. The attack began. Alien warcraft unleashed fire upon the station. The outpost shook, metal groaning under the force of their weapons, but the shields Mira had rerouted from the power core held, glowing brightly as they absorbed the impact. Sparks rained from the ceilings, but the hull did not break. Rylan's voice boomed over the intercom. Return fire. Improvised cannons made from mining lasers and reinforced coils fired back. The shots were rough, inaccurate, but they struck true enough to force the alien ships to dodge. The station, once defenseless, now bit back. Alien boarding parties broke through the hull, storming into the corridors. But this time the crew did not panic. They stood their ground, armed with plasma cutters, shock rods, and makeshift barriers. Rylan led from the front, his armor glowing, his blades slicing through enemy weapons. Mira stayed in the control room, her fingers dancing across consoles. She rerouted power, sealed doors, and triggered energy bursts to disable alien machines. Each time a defense worked, hope grew stronger. The battle raged on. The aliens pressed harder, sending wave after wave. Their war machines, tall and armored, stomped through the halls. But Rylan met them head-on, his strikes precise, his voice commanding. Hold the line. Push them back. Mira watched him fight on the monitors, her chest swelling with awe. He was more than a soldier. He was the spirit of humanity itself, refusing to yield. His presence gave strength to every frightened worker who lifted a weapon. Hours passed and the battle reached its peak. The alien flagship drew closer, charging its main cannon. If it fired, the station would be destroyed. Rylan stormed into the control room, his armor scorched, his movements heavy but determined. Mira, he said, the coil you built, can it be amplified? She nodded quickly. Yes, but it will drain the core completely. The station will lose all power. Do it, Rylan said without hesitation. Better darkness than destruction. Together they worked frantically. Wires sparked, machines hummed, and the energy coil glowed brighter and brighter. Outside, the alien flagship powered its weapon, energy gathering at its core. Mira's hands shook as she pressed the final sequence. It's ready. Rylan slammed his armored fist onto the trigger. The coil exploded with light, sending a massive pulse of energy across space. The wave struck the alien fleet, and in an instant their systems flickered and died. Weapons dimmed, engines stalled, and the flagship shuddered in silence. Cheers erupted across the outpost. For the first time, the alien fleet faltered, but Rylan did not smile. His eyes stayed sharp. This is not the end, he warned. They will return stronger than before. But now they know we are not weak. Mira stood beside him, exhausted but proud. We fought them. We survived. He looked at her, his voice softer. Yes, and we will continue to fight, because humanity always stands, no matter the odds. The outpost crew gathered, bruised but alive, their eyes shining with new courage. The station was scarred, but it still stood. And in the center of it all was Rylan, the hidden soldier who had become their shield. Mira gazed at him, her heart filled with a fierce certainty. She had once thought he was only a worker, quiet and ordinary, but now she knew the truth. He was the reason they still breathed, the reason they could look to tomorrow without despair. And when the darkness came again, as it surely would, he would stand at the front, and humanity would stand with him. The outpost lay silent for only a moment. The pulse of the energy coil had disabled the alien fleet temporarily, but it was only a delay. Mira and Rylan both knew the enemy would return, stronger and faster. The crew moved quickly, repairing damaged doors, reinforcing walls, and checking weapons. Every second counted. Rylan stood in the command center, his glowing armor scuffed and scratched but his posture unbroken. He surveyed the radar display, noting the enemy's movements. 5 large warships were retreating to regroup, but they were not gone. In fact, they would return with reinforcements soon. Mira approached him, her face tired but resolute. "They'll be back," she said softly. "They always do," Rylan replied. "But they will learn something new about humanity this time." She followed him down the corridors, noticing how he moved with precision and control. Every action seemed calculated, every glance scanning for danger. Mira realized she had never seen fear in his eyes, not once even during the first attack. His calmness inspired courage in others. "Rylan," she asked cautiously, "how can you stay so calm? Don't you feel fear?" He paused for a moment, looking out a viewport at the dark expanse of space. "Fear is a tool, not a weakness. It tells you what to protect and when to act, but it cannot stop action. Courage is choosing to act despite fear." Mira nodded, impressed. She wanted to feel that kind of certainty. Around them, the crew worked with a newfound energy. Engineers reinforced the station's defenses. Scientists adapted experimental devices into weapons, and technicians rerouted power to the shields. The station was alive with preparation, a fortress born from human ingenuity and determination. Suddenly, the radar flashed red again. The alien fleet had returned, much larger this time, and their war machines filled the sector. The outpost would be overwhelmed if they did not act fast. Rylan straightened, his armor humming with energy. "They are here," he said simply. "We fight. Every human who can move, who can act, must stand. We will not fall today." Mira's chest tightened with determination. "Then let's finish this." The first wave of alien warcraft fired on the station. The shields held, but the blast shook the walls and rattled the floors. Sparks flew from broken panels, and the smell of scorched metal filled the air. Mira ran from console to console, activating defenses and rerouting energy as Rylan coordinated the crew. Alien boarding parties appeared in the corridors. They were bigger, faster, and more heavily armed than before, but Rylan met them with unmatched skill. His armor glowed brighter as he moved through the halls, striking with precision. Every attack he blocked, every enemy he stopped, inspired the humans around him. Mira watched him on the monitors, her heart racing. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a symbol, the living embodiment of human resolve. She could see the crew following his lead, no longer panicked but determined to fight. "Keep the corridors clear," Rylan shouted over the comms. "Do not let them breach the command center. Move together, cover each other." Mira followed his instructions, directing energy pulses to disable alien weapons and sealing doors to funnel invaders into traps. The crew fought bravely alongside him, and for the first time Mira felt the fear turn into strength. The aliens pressed harder, sending massive war machines down the main corridor. Their metal legs clanged against the floor, each step like a drumbeat of war. The humans prepared their improvised defenses, but Mira knew they could not hold forever. Rylan faced the largest machine, his armor shining as he activated his full combat mode. Blades extended from his arms, energy shields flared around him, and weapons deployed from hidden compartments. He charged at the war machine, striking precise blows, knocking it off balance. Sparks flew as metal clashed, but Rylan did not stop. "Push them back," he shouted to the humans, his voice carrying through the chaos. "Show them the strength of humanity." Mira joined him, activating the experimental energy coil. It released a pulse that overloaded the war machine systems, making it stumble. The humans cheered as Rylan pushed forward, striking down the alien invaders with skill and courage that seemed almost superhuman. The battle raged through the outpost. Every hallway, every room became a fight for survival. The humans, inspired by Rylan, moved as one, defending their station and each other. Mira watched him, realizing that the quiet man she had once known was more than a soldier. He was a leader, a shield, and a symbol of everything humans could achieve when united. Hours passed. The aliens, though numerous and powerful, began to falter. Their ships were damaged by the station's defenses, their boarding parties blocked or destroyed by human ingenuity. Rylan coordinated every attack, every defense, guiding the humans with precision. At last, the alien flagship appeared, massive and imposing, its energy cannon charging for a devastating shot. The humans froze, realizing that a single blast could destroy the entire station. Rylan stepped forward, undeterred. "Mira, the coil again." Amplify it fully. We can stop them, but it will drain the station's power completely. Mira nodded quickly, working with shaking hands. She adjusted the connections, rerouted energy, and prepared the pulse. Sparks flew, machines hummed, and the air crackled with raw power. Rylan raised his hand. Now! The coil discharged, sending a wave of energy across the sector. The alien flagship shuddered, its systems failing. Smaller ships faltered, their weapons died, and the war machines collapsed. The aliens roared in frustration, then retreated, their fleet scattered. For a long moment, silence reigned. The humans stared out into space, watching the enemy withdraw. Mira's heart pounded, her chest tight with relief. They had survived. Rylan lowered his glowing armor, exhaustion evident but controlled. He turned to the humans around him. This is a victory, he said. But remember, it is our courage and unity that won today. Not just weapons, not just machines. Humans endure because we never give up. The crew erupted in cheers, their fear replaced by awe and pride. Mira stood among them, her eyes on Rylan. She had once thought him a simple worker, quiet and ordinary. Now she knew the truth. He had been hiding the best of humanity in plain sight. She approached him slowly. You saved all of us, she said softly. Rylan shook his head. No, we saved each other. Courage spreads when shared. That is what humanity is. Strength not just in one person, but in all of us together. Mira smiled, feeling a warmth she had never known in the quiet halls of the outpost. Then we are more than just survivors, she said. We are humans who fight back no matter the odds. Rylan's eyes met hers, a faint but confident smile on his lips. Exactly. And as long as we stand together, no enemy can break us. The outpost was battered, the walls scorched, and the stations damaged, but it stood. The humans who remained had faced a threat greater than anything they had imagined, and survived. They had discovered courage they did not know they had, and it had been guided by the quiet soldier who had transformed before their eyes. Mira looked around at the crew. Engineers patched systems, scientists checked the energy coils, and civilians helped each other rebuild. The fear that had gripped them only hours before had turned into something stronger. Determination. She returned her gaze to Rylan. He was more than a soldier. He was more than human in the way he inspired others. He had shown them the heart of humanity, the courage, intelligence, and unity that could withstand even the darkest threats. And Mira knew this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers. But now she had hope, because she had seen the best of humanity, embodied in a man who had once seemed ordinary, and in the spirit that he had awakened in everyone around him. The outpost would be rebuilt, stronger than before. And when the shadows returned, as they surely would, humanity would be ready. Rylan turned to Mira, his glowing armor dimming as systems cooled. You see now, he said quietly, why we never give up. Because even when we seem ordinary, we can rise to become extraordinary. Mira nodded, her heart full. I see now. You are proof of humanity's strength. Together they stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The outpost behind them was battered but alive, and the darkness ahead seemed less frightening. For the first time in a long time, Mira felt truly safe, not because the danger was gone, but because humanity, led by courage, would always rise to meet it. And in that moment, she knew one simple truth. Sometimes the most ordinary faces hide the most extraordinary heroes. The battle was won. Humanity had stood,